cable. Here's what we'll need for this project: an XLR cable, a soldering iron, solder, wire strippers, a vise, a cable tester, a wire cutter, and scissors. The first step in an XLR cable repair is to identify what pins are malfunctioning. This can be done using a basic cable tester. As you can see, when we wiggle the end of this cable, pin 3 goes out. After we identify the malfunctioning pins, we'll need to remove the XLR ends. Depending on where your malfunctioning pins are, you may need to remove both ends of the cable, but in this case, we'll only need to remove the female end. Removing the ends on this specific type of cable is easy. Simply unscrew the rubber piece and slide it back. You'll now need to slide forward the metal chassis and slide back the stress relief grip. This will give you access to the cable's solder connections. As we look at our solder connections, we'll find 3 pins on our XLR end. Pin 1 is your ground, Pin 2 is your positive connection, and Pin 3 is your negative connection. Do keep in mind that pins 1 and 2 switch places between the male and female ends. Now, gently place your XLR into the end of a vise, locking it in place. If you don't have a vise, place the cable on a flat surface and adjust accordingly. After you have your vise secure, you can take your soldering iron and carefully desolder all 3 pins from their respective wires. Now, grab your wire cutters and remove the old connections from the cable. We'll then strip the new wire about an inch from the end. Be careful not to cut into the internal wires, we're just removing the sheathing. Most XLR cables will either have a nylon string or twine inside. This is to relieve stress on the cable if it's pulled on. We can cut the line near our exposed wires so it's out of our way. After doing that, spin your exposed copper wire into a continuous strand for easier handling later. Grab your wire strippers again and carefully strip the red and black wires. These are very fragile, so make sure to spend extra time on this step for a better final product. Now that our cable is prepped, we can begin tinning the wires. Hold your soldering iron underneath the wire and melt a bit of solder along it. This will allow us to connect it to the XLR ends later. Before we solder the wires to the XLR pins, we want to refer back to the pinout to make sure we wire this cable correctly. Refer back to this diagram for your specific cable pinout. Beginning with pin 1, resolder your cables onto the XLR end. You can make sure your solders are securely connected by gently tugging on the cable. If it stays put, the connection should be secure. After your cables are soldered, cross-reference your repair with the pinout diagram once more to make sure your connections are correctly placed. Now, reattach your metal chassis, rubber piece, and stress relief. Screw the plastic end piece back into the chassis and your repair is complete. If you have a cable tester, make sure you retest your cable to make sure all 3 pins are working properly. Now your repair is complete. Thanks for watching.